Hello everyone. So welcome to Devlog 2 of my game. Today we've got a lot to talk about. A lot of progress was made, and also there was an update to Unity's runtime fee. So let's jump right into it. So to begin, I kind of just want to talk a little bit about my game. So I've mentioned previously some of the inspirations. The gist of it is I'd like for this to be an action platformer style game. So a mix of Jak and Daxter, Zelda, and some elements from other games that are in the same genre or at least similar from the PlayStation 2 era. I'm going for like a PlayStation 2 aesthetic, and that's basically in Stella's model. And I have a couple models that do also fit that, but I'll have to go into more detail about Stella in a different video. I don't really have, I have an idea for a story, but I kind of don't really want to talk about it too much, simply because, I'm still working out some of the details, and realistically, the story won't even really play a part in the demo. So my goal, it's almost October. That means that I would have 3 months to finish this demo before the end of the year. I actually am kind of beginning to wonder if that's even possible. For now, I want to try and finish the demo for the end of the year or for the beginning of next year. That's my goal. And then once the demo's out, I'll probably continue working a little bit and see how much more I can get done. And so anyways, with all that in mind, I'm going to be calling this project Stella, simply because I'm basing this on a lot of video games that use the character name as the title. So think Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, Kaya Dark Legacy, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. A lot of these games had the name of the character in the title, and I think Stella and the Awesome Adventure, or whatever it will end up being, is very likely going to be what I call the game. That being said, let's actually get into it and talk a little bit about what I've been working on. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the enemies. So I have a little test arena here, and I've got a path here, and this is just a little waypoint path system. It's just a bunch of transforms and a list of waypoints here. I have a path type here, so I can change it to linear, which you can see it'll break off the connection there. Cyclic, which you already saw, it's just a big loop. And random, which turns off all the connections, and basically the enemy will go to a random point. I think the enemy is going to see me right away, actually. The enemy is not going to see me. All right, so the enemy is just going to go to the closest waypoint first, and then they're going to start following that path. They're actually going to follow this path for quite a while before deciding to take a rest. The enemy I have here, I called it Rhino Beetle. I kind of want the enemies in this game to be like a mixture of lizards and bugs. At least the sort of animal enemies, the environment enemies. I've been trying to make a Rhino Beetle model, but none of the models that I've been making have actually felt right. So I may just make like a small lizard character for this one. I'm not really sure. Anyways, so this enemy, he has a couple scripts that I created. So we've got an enemy movement here, which is basically just like, it's a script that handles all the different state machines. And you can see I've got like a handful of different enemy states here. So I'm going to check chase the player, and I'm actually just going to move the Rhino Beetle away so that it's not too close to Stella when I press play. So if I just turn on gizmos and punch, apparently, you can see that there's a blue sphere and a red sphere. So the blue sphere represents the enemy's awareness when they're not alerted to your presence. So if I intersect with the blue sphere, it draws a line to my position, which you can see right there as being occluded by the wall. But if I make line of sight, the enemy will follow me. Now that the enemy has been alerted to my position, they're basically going to be able to see me within the red sphere. So even if I go outside of the blue sphere, the enemy won't be able to follow me. So I actually have it set up so that if I occlude, the enemy will basically remember the direction I was going in, and it'll try and follow me to that position. So then if I am too fast for the enemy, which I am, the enemy will stop there, and it'll try and start looking for me. So it's going to go to the first waypoint it randomly picks, which is that one, and then it's going to chill out and look for me for a moment. And right now, the enemy just goes back to patrolling right away. I need to fix that because I want the enemy to search for you for much longer than it currently is. So anyways, there's also another thing that happens, and it basically just seems that I can like run around a wall and constantly hide from the enemy. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to also make it so that if you're this close to an enemy, you have to be crouching or something. And that will hopefully prevent the enemy from being able to detect you. But if you're standing, then the enemy should be able to detect you based on sound. So the next thing about enemies is that the enemies can actually damage me. And so I've done a couple things with the damage. First of all, you can see my health bar in the top left will actually decrease when I take damage, and I'll blink. And also there's the bonk, state that I go into. So yeah, my health will decrease, and currently nothing happens to me when I die, but of course I'm invincible when I'm blinking because that's what it is. And this also happens when I jump on top of the enemy. But the enemy can also take damage. So there's a script at the bottom right, enemy status. You can see that there's health. And if I hit the enemy, that was a spin. There we go. And then one more. Now you can see the enemy's dead. And the two scripts are deleted. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to delete as much as possible. And then make the layer like environment so that I can actually jump on the enemy and like stand on its corpse or something. I don't know, something really crazy like that. I think that'd be really cool. All right, so here we are in the playground showing off the next feature. And the next feature is the camera. So the camera has a very basic system right now. I'm definitely going to be working on it some more because it needs some ironing out. But the first thing I'm going to show you is this corner system. So when you move towards a corner, it moves out of the way. What I think it should do is I think it should only move out of the way if you're like, facing this direction. But if you're facing forward, it shouldn't move out of the way. So that's probably something I'm going to fix. The other thing, and this is another thing I'm going to fix, is that if I start moving towards the wall, it'll sort of move forward. But the problem is it starts to get jittery. So I need to figure out what's causing that and fix that. Next, I updated Stella's grounded. So previously I was just using a check sphere to detect whether or not she was grounded. And check sphere is pretty limited, so I decided I would upgrade her groundedness. And so here we go. So you can see that there's a green line and a red line. And basically it's just that blue sphere is representative of where I want the grounded to be checking, and what it's checking is what it's colliding with. So the green line represents the fact that she's touching the ground, and the red line represents the fact that she's touching this slope here. It happens here too, but this is kind of jittery, and she should be walking up this, so this is something I'm also going to need to figure out. But anyways, so the good thing about this is that there's actually a system where I can take the angle of that intersection and I can use that as the slope angle. But it doesn't work 100% of the time because, for instance, like you might run into situations like this. There's an angle, but the slope of the ground, there's no slope basically. So there are going to be situations where I want to use the normal of the ground, and I'm doing that with a sphere cast. And there are going to be situations where I don't want to use the normal of the ground, like with here, where I want to push Stella off the ledge without having to worry about her getting stuck. It works pretty well, and I'm very happy with the way it's looking. So I just need to figure out that one little jittery situation so I can start walking up this slope again. The funny thing is, this is all basically me redesigning how edge sliding happens and how the grounded method works. So the grounded method is now much larger and the edge slide method is now way smaller. Here's a video I took of me deleting the edge slide completely, and this is what it looks like now. There is actually one other thing. So I found it really helpful that Visual Studio has a autocomplete feature now that's AI based. But one thing that I found that was pretty funny was here, while I was making all these strings. So these strings basically are just static strings that I'm saying this is the state that the player is in. While I was creating variables, I ran into this funny issue. Do you see what it says there? Protected static string downper. I don't know what that is, but it won't complete it. However, if I go protected static string, not downper, upper underscore deck, and then close that, the next suggestion is downper cut, which is so bizarre. I wonder if it'll go down per deck. It will! Oh my goodness. AI autocomplete is hilarious, and sometimes it does some stupid stuff, like I'll set a bool to true and it'll be like, in the next line, time to set this bool false. And I'll be like, no, that's not what I want. But I just thought that was funny. I can't believe that happened. Alright, so I guess now's as good a time as any to start talking about the whole Unity fiasco stuff. The runtime fee. Basically, for those of you who don't know, Unity introduced a runtime fee, which was really ridiculous, and it would charge developers 20 cents per install. You heard that correctly. And this kind of threw everything into disarray, because it was like, holy crap, they can basically just charge you every single time someone does something that's out of your control. Recently, they backtracked on a lot of that, and now it's a much more reasonable situation where you don't have a runtime fee, but you have an initial interaction, I guess is what they're calling it. So it's basically, they're not even going to charge you when the person purchases, but when the person first installs your game rather than on a device, or whether they install it multiple times. And that's going to be self-reported as well as revenue share. And they're saying that they're going to take the cheapest one out of both of those. Now, I kind of am thinking that this is a much better option. I've been watching a lot of videos recently, and I see some people who are like really angry about this still, even though there's been a change. And there's actually only one person that I saw who was just like, oh, actually, this is great. I much prefer this. And that's basically the end of their conversation. I'm kind of in the middle. Personally, I'm probably going to stick with Unity for the demo version of the game. I think I will investigate more game engines, and also I'm probably going to learn some of them in the meantime, just so that I can get a foothold in another engine in case something like this happens again and I just never want to use Unity again. But I like Unity a lot, and I think as a software it has a lot to offer. I also kind of think that it just doesn't make sense for Unity to do something like this again. This isn't like, Netflix. They, want to roll out a new feature and then everybody gets upset and then they don't do it, but then they roll it out again in a month and people just deal with it. Unity isn't dealing with consumers in the same way those companies are. They're dealing with businesses, and if you mess with the business's bottom line, they're going to jump ship if they can. All of those other businesses demonstrated that they could. Everyone demonstrated that they could go to Unreal. They demonstrated that they could go and use Godot. I personally found out about a bunch of different game engines that exist that I had no clue about. I mean, there's Flax, which I didn't know about. There's Stride, which I didn't know about. Falco Engine, which I didn't know about, although I'm not really sure about Falco Engine. And you've got like a bunch more that I haven't even mentioned. And they each have their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And I think that reality has sunk in to Unity, that they can't do something like this anymore because they're not a monopoly. Even though there's like two, you've got Unity and Epic, neither of these companies are a monopoly. And so if one of them does something stupid, we can just go and use another game engine. And so in order for Unity to actually be confident enough to do something like this, they would have to know that their actions would not result in people leaving. And so I don't think that this is going to happen again. But I would also caution people by saying, never underestimate the incompetence of people who think they know better than you. What I would say is that the board at Unity and also the current CEO are people who fall into that category. They don't really think very much of developers, whether they are the bigger indie developers or solo developers like myself. And so I don't really trust them as a group in the organization to make decisions. My investigation brought me to some other options that I want to share with you right now. Actually, the only other option is Stride Engine. If you guys are wondering how I've been handling these little investigations of mine, basically what I decided I would do after using Flax for a little bit is I would just kind of go into the engines and try and figure out how to do stuff on my own. Maybe I would have the manual on hand and just try and figure it out as a whole. But the first thing I would do is I would try and import models. And in Stride, I actually found that to be very easy. I have a couple of mushroom models here. And so this is a model that I created a while ago for this game, actually, back when Stella had a different model. I'm going to export this one to an FBX, mushrooms FBX, and then I'm going to go back to Stride. And then I'm just going to grab the mushroom FBX and export it as a 3D model. So I'm going to uncheck import materials. But look at this. This is the import from model settings, right? So I can import a skeleton. I can import materials or textures. It's nice. It's clean. It's simple. And I just click OK. And there's my mushroom. So I'm just going to drag that out. Oh yeah, this is not Unity. Yeah, so there's the mushroom. And you can see it has nothing on it, so I'm just going to create a new material. Materials are actually pretty different here. So you can see that I have a couple options here. I've got PBR material, clear coat, metalness, specular, thin glass, and diffuse material. And so I'm actually just going to create an empty material here so that you can see like how this whole thing works. So I'm going to put that onto my, I can't add material assets there. I'm going to put this here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a diffuse. And it's going to be a diffuse map. And this is going to be a texture. So let me grab my mushroom texture. Bring that in as a color. And again, super simple import. I brought it in as a color. And you can see I've got a bunch of options here that just make everything really simple. So let's go back to the material. And I'm just going to put the mushroom. And honestly, for what I'm looking for, this is basically what I need. I don't need a specular or emissive or subsurface scattering. But if you want all of those, it's as simple as, add a specular metalness map. And you can even change this here to like a float 4. I'm going to change this to a metalness map. Yeah. And I can change this to a single float, so I can change the metal value here, but you can see that there's something wrong because what I actually need is a microsurface. So the microsurface is the glossy value. So this is basically going to dictate how shiny an object is. So you can see now with a gloss set to 1, I guess this would be more of like a smoothness map. So this is not smooth at all, and this is like more smooth. You can also invert it if you want to. So if you're using roughness, so this is completely smooth and this is completely rough. I don't like the fact that this doesn't have like a node setup for materials, but I actually like how simple it is to customize a material inside of Stride. I think that just as like a baseline for generic materials, this is a really great solution. However, I don't need all this stuff, so I'm just going to delete the specular and that kind of thing. I'm just going to leave the diffuse. You can see that there's something wrong here because if I look at it in Blender, this is basically what it's supposed to look like. Something like this. And that's not what it looks like. So clearly there's something up here. And it probably has to do with the lighting. I think the way they're doing it is they have it set up so that you need to put like a LUT over top of it and do some color correction, but I don't really like the way it looks, and it's not exactly simple to figure out how to fix that. Anyways, let's go on to our main event. and that's Stella. As you can see, first of all, I've got a bunch of textures here that I didn't have in Unity because I've been working on her model a little bit more. But you can see her eyes are correct, and that's fantastic. So this is great for me because it means that I actually know of a game engine that functions the way I need it to when it comes to transformations like this. So one more thing that I actually really like about this, and I don't know if this is available in any of the other ones, but you can see that I have a character collider here. You can see that I have collider shapes, and I have a capsule collider here. So the capsule collider, if I show my colliders, is just this. It's basically the same thing that's inside of Unity, except a little bit wider. If I wanted to, I could actually just add another collider. I could add another box collider. And so it really becomes easy for you to just add more colliders if you need them. And I'm assuming, I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming that you can actually manipulate these through code. This is where Stella's animations are stored inside of Stride. So there's no animation node feature. Nothing like the animator in Unity or the animation nodes in Flax or inside of Unreal. And that's kind of a downer because it basically means that if I want to create a blend tree or something like that, I have to write it all in code. And they have documents on their website on how to do that, but it makes things that much more complicated, and it makes me wonder if this is even a worthwhile thing to do. I really like Stride, but it could definitely use some more features in order to make it a lot more usable. All right, so I guess now would be a really good time to talk a little bit about Flax Engine and some of the things that I said in the last video. So I said Flax Engine was off the table, and this is still kind of true, but it's still kind of untrue. The reason why was because I posted something on their Discord in the hopes that it would actually get their attention and that they might be able to fix some of the transformation problems that I was having. So the first one, of course, being the eyes, that the eyes didn't actually scale properly. And if we actually look at the animation graph, I actually have one other thing to show. So currently I have set up the ground pound animation. And look at what happens to her feet. Her feet just completely stretch out. That's not what that animation's supposed to look like. She's supposed to land on the ground. This is what that same animation looks like in Stride. Like, you can see that Stella's feet are actually touching the ground. If a game engine like Stride is able to do this, but a game engine like Flax Engine isn't able to do this, and I haven't even tested this animation out in Unreal, that says a lot about those game engines. I understand that people are excited about new engines, and I understand that people want other people to use the engines that they're excited about, but I think we have to look at this from the perspective of these are tools, and if the tool doesn't suit the function that you need as a developer, then it might not be the right tool. I think Stride is a really great option. I'm going to keep looking at it. I know I'm going to be learning more about Unreal. The reason why I'm going to be doing that is because it is another industry standard tool, and I actually do want to work in the industry, so it makes sense for me to learn Unreal. But yeah, that was Stride Engine, and that was some of the problems that I had in Flax Engine. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There was a lot to talk about, including some of the stuff that I did in other engines, and I didn't even get to cover all of it because I ran out of time. So hopefully that'll be in the next video. The next video will be all updates because I'm not going to be bothering to talk about any new engines that I discovered unless something really amazing happens. And I know for all of you Godot lovers, look, I tried Godot. I tried my method of just importing a model, and I had the worst time with Godot. So I may learn it, but right now it's just, I don't think it's for me. I don't think my brain works the way Godot users' brain works. And, well, I don't know what that means. So yeah, if you liked the video, please leave a like. If you have any comments or any questions that you want to ask me, please comment down below. If you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe and also support me by donating to my Ko-fi, which is ko-fi.com/supertrooper. You can also follow me on Instagram at supertrooper_art, and I post art there sometimes if I make anything that I feel like sharing. It's not something that I'm totally 100% active at, but you know, I'll do it from time to time I'll make something and post it there. Anyways, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Super trooper, super trooper, super trooper, and he sells soup.